Mitchell, and welcome to our series, Phenomenal Women2Watch. And this is Kendra Deas, who is our guest. And Kendra is Director of Human Resources for IQTalent Partners, a company that's blowing up here in Nashville. And this series, Women2Watch, is started to highlight women we want to know, we want to meet, who are living phenomenally and also are helping other women to empower themselves and live phenomenally. So that's the purpose of this whole series, and Kendra is my second guest, and we've known each other, I thought it was 10 years, and we were talking, it's really 11 years.
Since 2008.
Since 2000, man, time flies when you're working hard and having fun, I guess, living phenomenally. And I met you through Casey Posh, who used to work for me, who has gone on to bigger things. She's now Executive Director of Junior Achievement in Columbia. But you guys have been friends. And so over the course of these 11 years, we did stuff in cable. We've served on boards together. And currently, I'm the chair of the YW board, and you're in Nashville, Middle Tennessee, and you're on the board. And so we're in a lot of networks together. But I've just seen you over these 11 years just grow from a professional standpoint and grow to a person that even though I know you, I want to know more. And I want our viewers to have an opportunity to learn more about you and your phenomenal presence that you have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I think where we're going to start is that I want you to talk about your career trajectory and how you've landed to where you are now. Because I always say that you're young and you say that you're not. But you're really young. I'm really old. You're really young to be head of HR for a huge company and controlling all of those functions. And they're under you at this point. So I'll turn it over to you now.
Yeah, so I've had an interesting career trajectory actually. My degree's actually in marketing.
Okay.
I've never really worked in marketing. Out of college, I worked in retail banking.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's the commonality, right?
So I worked in banking for a few years and really decided it wasn't for me because I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
So I transitioned into recruiting in HR.
Okay.
With the same bank.
With the
so
same
which
bank.
was a great opportunity. So
Okay.
I did recruiting for a while. And then my former company I was with for almost 11 years, and I started there as a recruiter, and then had the opportunity to really expand my HR knowledge, and was a director of corporate HR when I left there.
Okay, and in those 11 years, which since I knew you from day one and through the 11 years kind of being there as well, what were your big key takeaways in that company? Because I know it was a huge company. I mean, there were 70,000 plus employees in all over the United States.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of people. And so coming in as a recruiter, and then when you left, you were over corporate HR. What were your big learnings? What happened there in those 11 years that shaped?
Yeah. It was a great learning opportunity. I think some of the biggest takeaways for me were really learning how to interact and work with executives, and so kind of learning executive presence, how to present information in a concise manner and sell it really to your executive team. Also a lot of cross-functional work, so really had the opportunity to learn the different parts of the business, so not just HR. So I partner with operations very closely, and in most businesses, operations are the core of the business, and so I think that was a real benefit to me there, is really learning and knowing the operations, not just being the HR person, but having an understanding of what we did and why we did it and how it impacted our employees. And so those were probably my two biggest learnings. Is really, I think that have benefited me to now where I am, is learning how to work with really the C-suite.
Yeah, and we were talking about that earlier before we started taping, and you and I were talking about doing this whole series, and I kept saying, and even my daughter read, I kept saying, I want to do Kendra. There's this thing that she has, and it's almost like this stillness, this confidence, the poise, the thing. And then I'm like, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, and I don't know what it is, but I know that it is. And then when we were talking about in your trajectory with this firm, that you were presenting to executives on a regular basis. You were in the room with, you had to have your own space there. And I'm like, that was my aha. I'm like, okay, that's probably what it is that I'm feeling, because, you know, even for me, and like I said, I'm old, no, you know, I look good, but
you look great.
Yeah, but you know, it took me a long time in my career to be confident on that level. So little bitty Rita walking in, and because I was, you know, had my own company in sales, and walking into the CEO of a big company trying to sell them something, even if you know your stuff, you're still kind of intimidated, and you're thinking too hard about what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so for me, and you can either concur or not concur with me, at that level and at your age, to have to own that space, whatever you were presenting, and be confident to either present, convince, you know, have an opinion to weigh in, had to really get inside. And so, and increase the confidence in everything else that you were doing. And so, tell me if I'm hitting the mark or not, or and it may be a combination of things.
That's true, but I think it's also a combination of having great mentors and coaches as well.
Yes.
Because honestly, I was very blessed to have people who prepared me to go into those rooms. And so whether it was, you know, the chief people officer I worked with at the time, or even our former senior vice president of operations was also a great advocate of mine as well. And so I never went in unprepared. I mean, there's times when they're like, come over here in 5 minutes and tell me about this. Yeah. But when I knew that there was a big presentation, you know, I made sure I was prepared. And there were people who were like, don't say this, say this, or look at it this way, approach it this way. And so I had great coaches to prepare me. And even in the room, you know, I remember oftentimes our senior VP of Ops, I would say something and he would be nodding, or he would be like, or like, he was always notorious to be like, that's enough. Like,
and it doesn't
get
stop.
your point across and stop.
Stop,
you know?
right.
And so that, I think, really builds your confidence.
Right.
And, you know, you're right. I think it does build your confidence in all areas of your life. And at some point, especially in the corporate world, when it's kind of a high stakes game when you're presenting at that level. It's kind of, you do great, or it could be a make or break any day sometimes. And so you get this real comfort level with yourself of like, I'm gonna do the best I can. Yeah. And if it's good, great. If
you know,
not,
you can't stop and say, can I come back and start again? But I still say, and I know this to be true, as a person who led people, hired people, managed people, developed people, you're just not gonna let anybody go in the room either. Yeah. So you did have great mentors, but they also had to pick you out of the pack and say, I think you can do it. We're gonna roll the dice, and then obviously you got better and better and better.
Yeah, preparation is always the key, and you know, being an expert in your field, you know, knowing your craft is always the key, right?
Right. So why don't you talk about your new role now? Because you started. Has it been 6 months ago? How long ago was that?
March.
In March. Right. Yeah. And so there's this big story in between. We're going to get to the big story in between. But tell me now, you guys are growing crazy. So 175 plus employees, and maybe
about 130, and then we have some contractors.
Right. That are all over.
Okay.
And in your role today, what are you responsible for?
So I'm director of HR for IQTalent Partners, and so it's a small company. It's now been around for 10 years, but it was a small startup. You know, the co-founders, two Vanderbilt graduates, decided to start a recruiting company and kind of really turn recruiting on its head. So they've now grown large enough. They've started building out functions, and so I started in March leading HR. So they've never had a director of HR and really the HR function built out. And so I'm now responsible for everything HR. So it's, you know, I'm learning about benefits. I do working on the 401k administration, which I've never done, but I'm also responsible for compliance, for recruiting, for just overall employee engagement as well. So really anything HR. Really.
And you're hiring an executive for training. I mean, somebody
we're
that's
hiring training.
So they're, even though, and they just won, they were recognized too as having this success, and the model that you guys are using is totally different from the traditional.
We're on the Hunt Scanlon list of top 50 recruiting companies, and which we are amazed to be after just 10 years of business.
Right.
And Korn Ferry is number 1 on that list, so
Yeah.
we're really excited to be on that list and to be recognized.
And so I know the trajectory is there, and that's what I'm saying, this Women2Watch. When you look at 5 years where this company is going to be and the seat that you're sitting in, because the company that you left, we talked about it. So, and we're gonna talk to your former mentor who was over the whole show, who reached in and said, you're the one. But in that huge place, there's each director of everything. There's a director of benefits. There's a director of compliance. There's a director, and then the director reports to the person sitting here, which is the seat that you have. So you're now in that seat of a company that's gonna is blowing up and gonna do all those things. And so and I think about, they had a lot of choices when they were interviewing, and when we were talking in between. So the story in between this story is that you made a decision. I guess your new daughter will have a birthday one year, Mia, next week. I hate a party, but she's turning 1, and so. A year ago, after you had her, you and I talked, and you were at your old company and trying to make a decision, what you were going to do. I think you had already left.
Yeah.
And you were trying to decide whether you're going to be a stay-at-home mom. You were recently married, in a long-term relationship, had a new baby, didn't have to go back to work, and you were trying to make a decision. Should I go back to work? Do I want to stay home? All of that, and we had lunch and we were talking about all that. So. Why don't you talk about where you were in that space at that time?
Yeah, so, my previous company I worked for almost 11 years and had some great opportunities, worked with phenomenal people who several are still dear friends of mine today. But after having Mia, even when I was pregnant, I was just like, I don't know if I can, work at this pace and,
and have a new baby.
I had a team of about 12 people.
Right.
I was, I didn't have to travel, but it's just a lot of hours really just to get things done because my hands were in a lot of different things. And so I felt like it would be really hard to step back and kind of set those boundaries of this is what I need to be a good mom and a good professional. And I had some conversations with my managers at the time and said, I don't think I can do this. They're like, oh yeah, we'll be flexible. And I was like, I just don't see it. And my heart just wasn't into it. And so my husband and I talked a lot about it. And I decided to just basically quit my job and not really know what was next. After lots of prayer too and talking to mentors and other people as well, but I just kind of took that leap, and I was like, whatever happens, happens. And I didn't have any idea what was going to happen. Like, maybe I'll do consulting. Maybe I'll, work part-time or do something from home, or maybe I'll go work part-time at Target. I love Target.
And it was a really big decision because you knew that you were sitting in the seat where you were, that opportunity was going to be yours to keep going up that corporate ladder. If you came back and after you had the baby and they were going to be flexible. So it was a huge decision to say, I don't know, I think I'm just going to step back and I don't know. Let's just make that decision.
Yeah, I just I was very blessed to have a baby at 40, and I just actually 41 when I had her, and so I just knew that I wanted to be present as a mother and really this is going to be my only child and that I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible and not have to make some really tough choices about that. And it's not judging anyone else's choices. I think you have to make the right choice for you, and I just felt very strongly that I needed to step away and just kind of see what else was out there for me. And my husband was very supportive of it and was like, we'll be fine, we'll figure it out, whatever. And so,
see what she thinks in your heart.
Yeah, but we kept her on the daycare list.
Yeah, right, daycare. I know, because we had lunch, and it was like, well, I think I'm gonna go back to work. We had lunch, and you had my book, and you had read the book, and you said, Rita, I want to talk to you about going back to work. And then we had lunch, and I said, okay, so what have you done? And it was so funny because the whole lunch you were like, I want to talk about you being a mom. And I know, Brittany, you raised your child. And what did you do? And I'm like, it was over, and I'm like, we didn't really talk about the work. We talked about the life balance and how do you raise children and all those things. And I think that as women, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal to make those decisions, to step out of a career or to go back to work. And at 40, you have the maturity to know what's important. You know, like at 21, you don't know anything. But at 40, you know.
Yeah.
And so the next thing I knew was like, I just texted and said, so where are you? She said, oh, I just took a job. I'm HR director. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're like, how am I working Target and now I'm HR director?
Yeah.
And so, and that's the backstory. Now, I'm going to switch to that. And that takes a very strong woman. And I want to talk about life balance when we get out of here too, because you're doing it. I mean, you're
I'm trying.
And I'm now Auntie Rita. I cleared it. I named it. I claimed it. But one of the things that happened in your new role too is that you have a millennial workforce, and that was different from where you were. Mm-hmm. So not only in your new role as HR director are you managing all these things in an explosive, booming company with a new model of how you do business, you also have a different workforce that you're managing. Hoping to them to grow into leaders. None of that's in place. And your take on millennials, when we first started talking about it, it was totally like, really? And so I want you to talk about what it is that you learned and your opinion about that workforce, because I think it's very unique.
Yeah, it's interesting. And actually, when I was considering the job with IQ, there was another opportunity I had with another company. It was just a full-time work-from-home HR consultant job, which was a great opportunity as well. And so I remember talking to one of my friends, and she's also an HR professional. And so it's like, what do you think? And she's like, you need to take the job with millennials. Like, they're the future. Like, just think how much you can learn. And I was like, that's an interesting perspective. And so I was like, huh. And, so I was like lining up the pros and cons of each. That was always on my mind because there's so much stereotype about the millennial workforce. Right. And so, it was interesting when I was interviewing with IQ, I went in, and so our leadership team, our CEO, CFO, and our chief sourcing officer are all Silicon Valley guys. And so they have worked in these very emerging type of workforces. High tech, a lot of high tech, and so they kind of already get it, and a little bit ahead of the curve from Nashville. And so when I walked in for interviews, it's very open space, a beer refrigerator, a ping pong table. I'm like, this is very different from where I came from. And so I was like, but this is really neat. This is cool. Like, I don't have an office. I have, I have a desk that's out in the open. And so I was like, this is something really different. And so most of our employees in the Nashville office are millennials. Our remote workforce is a little bit older. And so that's important to remember too, because I remember originally kind of thinking about the millennial workforce all the time, but it is important to consider everyone and where they're at and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our employees. But with our millennial workforce in Nashville, it's been so interesting and really invigorating to me.
Right, like, that was what was, when you told me that, I'm like,
it's work environment.
Yeah, that's what you said too,
they're just really smart. Sometimes I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I need to go Google that.
Right. You're right.
And so they're really smart, and I think IQ, one of the things that we do that's kind of the secret sauce that I think makes us successful with millennials is that we empower them.
Yes.
And so a lot of our initiatives are employee-led. So like we have a nerd initiative, which is, our employees call themselves the nerds, which is the National Executive Research Division. But they kind of, it's cool to be called a nerd. They love it. And so, but the nerd initiative is our really focus on community giving. Right. And so they lead that. Like they meet, I think it's every other week, and talk about who do we, awesome. Every quarter, the leadership team has given them a certain amount of money that they can donate to whatever, community organization they'd like to. And they can go volunteer wherever they want. But it's all employee-led. And so they come in and they're like, hey, I volunteer at this agency, I volunteer here, what do you think? And they make a decision as a team, and then they present it to the leadership team and say, here's where we want to donate the money to this quarter. And they pull up the financials, they tell us about the organization and why we should donate to that organization. And what I see from them is that they just want to own something and, to have to have the room to make decisions and feel like they're being valued. And so I think that's what we do is like, we're like, here's what we want you to do, and they do it. They figure out how to get it done. Like, they don't want to be told every step of the way. They want to be able to have some room to figure it out because they really are smart. They have the knowledge to do it.
Yeah.
So I really learned a lot from them, and I also admire their passion for social justice. I think that they're very much advocates and kind of much better keepers of each other than my generation was. I get really beat up for that. I argue with some of my millennial friends that are older millennials about that, but I've been really impressed with it. I mean, whether it's planting trees because they've done some work with
keepers of the earth.
But
I don't feel the like my little baby thing is going to change or save the earth or keep the earth or do the thing, and they think the ones that I met. That is absolutely, if one person that takes one to start it, and everybody should be doing it. And there's so much passion around it, and there's passion around life-work balance. There's passion about coming to work and only doing what you want to do now. The thing that I've seen that's crazy is that all that's happening, and they also think they should be CEO, promoted tomorrow, and run a $50 billion company.
Well, I think they want to understand how to get there. That's
but they think it's a week to do it.
I don't know if I totally agree, but I think that they want to understand, like, how do I get there? They want that to be very clear, and as more experienced professionals, we know it's not always so black and white. And so that's something that's sometimes difficult for them to understand. It's like, I can't just...
And see, this is HR. You see how you brought me all the way back to... No, I don't agree with you. All the way back to... They're balanced. They're just figuring it out. They're just young, and so I love that. I love that anchor that pulls, and I feel that it's a fairness, it's a stillness, it's an anchor where no, it's not that. It's this. I'm pretty cool with that. So I wanted to ask you: is there anything, our audience? Is there anything that you want to share related to? Either success or what you think about living phenomenally, and then I'm going to ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I mean, when you look at what success means to you today, I mean, obviously that's a moving motion kind of thing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And so I'm going to stop there because I've asked the questions for me, but I may have missed something that you really feel that you think is important to say.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice I would offer people is like, don't be afraid to take that risk. I mean, you have to be prepared for it, but don't be afraid to take that leap. Because that was amazing to me. I mean, stepping away from a good salary of a company where I felt like I had great credibility, great relationships, and really not knowing what was next was major and kind of scary, but when I did it, I had this amazing sense of calm as well and peace about it. And I
before you even got started, you
felt
it was right.
I felt like it was
you
right.
Felt it was right.
Yeah, and I knew it would work out. And I think oftentimes as women, especially, we have that sense and we know we need to make a move, but we just are afraid to do it. And so women are afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid. Like just take that leap and work to see what happens next. Like I said, be prepared for it. Like. Don't take the leap and not sure you can pay your rent next month.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You can't do dumb things, but you can certainly plan to be strategic.
Exactly.
And also know your craft that you are learning. You own the space that you're operating in terms of your talent and all that. Would that be the same advice that you would tell your younger self? I mean, what would you, if you could go back when you first started your career and where you are today and talk to you and you were getting started, what advice would you give you that you didn't know that would have changed things if you knew? Or is it anything like that?
Just as I think as a younger person, especially with just the world we live in today, and Instagram and all the social stuff, I just think it's just being okay with yourself and being comfortable with yourself. You can only be the best version of yourself, and so instead of focusing on what everyone else is doing, really focusing on improving your skills and your craft to be the best you can be, and not worry about comparing yourself to other people. And I think, for me growing up, that was something that, was hard, but with age and as I've gotten older and more comfortable with myself, I think that's really the big thing is like, I wish I would have been I wish I would have felt that earlier, just
more
through
confident
life in general.
in just
Yeah,
being
like
you.
I'm just
Being you.
You know,
and
like
being you is good enough.
Yeah, where I grew up, you know, I grew up on a farm. People are always like, "What?" But I grew up on a farm and in an area where there was not a lot of diversity, and so there weren't a lot of black little girls, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, you just a lot of times you're the only one in there.
Yeah.
And so instead of like complaining about that, like owning that and just, you know, make it what you are. Yes, like. I have friends that look all different types of ways, and I learn from all different types of people, and that's a benefit that you are able to interact and talk and work with people of all types.
Yeah.
And so use that as an advantage, not as a disadvantage, no matter what other people think or say.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the other thing, Mia, your daughter, which is she's amazing. And we were talking about this. I'm like, she's just comfortable. This is a baby. I mean, it's weird. She's comfortable in the room with everybody. She goes to people. She's fine. She has her own space. She's an independent. I'm like, and then you told me, Rita, I did a lot of praying. And tell them what you told me that you prayed for her.
I really, as people think this is crazy, I'm sure, but I prayed a lot when I was pregnant. You pray for, you know, that your child is healthy and all these things, but I also prayed that she would love other people and not just be stuck to me.
Yes.
Because I mean, like, just
you're everywhere.
A very independent person, and I knew that would be really hard for me, you know? And plus, we have an amazing village and support system, and I wanted Mia to feel that and experience that as well, and to be open to that. And she is.
And she is. I'm like, who is this baby? And I'm like, she said she's through prayer. I'm like, so anyway, prayer works, but she has that. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it up. So tell me where you see yourself in 5 years, and then end with what does living a phenomenal life mean to you? So you can wrap that into one answer or two answers, and then we'll wrap it up.
So in 5 years, you know, I want to keep growing in my HR professional career. I love IQTalent, would love to continue growing there and seeing what happens there. I think we're going to grow into a much bigger company and building out the HR function there. So I'm really excited about that. Continue to have some good balance in my life with my family, you know, with Terry and Mia. But also, you know, I would like to do, you know, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I had some health issues after I had Mia. Mm-hmm. And one of the things as I was going through that I really thought about is like, I want to make sure that I'm, you know, making other people aware of this and that to be an advocate over your own health.
Yes.
And so I would like to kind of explore that and really get more involved in that type of thing and being a voice of that, because as Black women, you know, the rate that we die having babies is very scary. Mm-hmm. And I had a very scary experience after having Mia when I was home from the hospital, where I had to go back in the hospital. Oh, no. And so it was very scary. And so being an advocate of your health is just so important. And so I would like to start doing some more work in that area.
Super.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for being my friend.
Thank you.
And providing me with my new niece. And everything you do in our community.
Thank you.
You are a phenomenal woman, and I'm definitely watching you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Beverly.
Hi, Rita.
I'm so glad that you are here. Of course, you and I have known each other, even though we haven't seen each other because you've been on the road, but now you're in Nashville all the time now. You've recently retired, and that's even a weird word to say because you're still
Yes, it is, because I'm
you're on the move. You're on the move.
Yes.
I shouldn't even say I'm retired and look what I'm doing. That's not even a real word. But you are here on my new series, Phenomenal Women2Watch, and of course my second guest is Kendra Deas, and you and she have a special relationship, and I'm going to turn it over to you to speak to it so that the audience also sees what I see in Kendra and why she's on this as a woman to watch. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, Kendra, I think Kendra was the very first person I met when I went to the company that she already worked for.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of people are smart. A lot of people have natural talent. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have HR expertise.
Correct.
You don't always find people who have all of those things. And not long after I spent some time with Kendra, I realized she has all of those things. And you know, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in HR. I've been in employment law. I've been doing this a long time. And she was one person that when I met her and when I spent some time working with her, that I felt like she truly was one to watch.
Okay.
She is naturally smart. So some people really just kind of have smart. She is also, she has developed some real skills in HR. And she has an insatiable drive
Okay.
for excellence.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that I have always tried to instill in my teams and the people that I lead is being excellent in HR. It is the HR is the one place that touches every single person in any organization.
I had never thought about it like that. But you're right.
You can go a long time before you might, depending on what you do, you might not touch the marketing people, you might not touch the finance people, but nobody works in an organization that doesn't touch HR.
So you have to have superior people skills, right?
You absolutely.
I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
And our HR is at the heart of all that. And Kendra really understands that.
And she understood it from when you first met her. I mean, she just stood out in getting it.
Yeah, I think she did. I mean, I have an eye for talent. I have an eye for talent. I also have an eye for people who understand culture in an organization. And Kendra really does. There's a lot of people that are smart. There are a lot of people that are talented. A lot of people who, all of those things. Kendra has all of that. And she really understands how to make the employee experience at any company real. And when I think about, I'm at the, the end of my career, official career in terms of a traditional role. Kendra is somebody that I think people should pay attention to.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Now, I didn't, our interview, and I couldn't define it exactly. But there's a presence, there's a stillness, there's a thing, and and I've known her for the last 11 years, and it's a thing, and you're right, and I couldn't identify it, and we talked about it, and you'll see it in the interview, but the thing you're talking about is the thing I couldn't quite put my hand on, but that thing is there, and if you're seasoned and you've done people, there's a thing, and so I concur with that.
Yeah, she has that thing.
She's got that thing.
Yeah.
So.
People, and in HR, I just believe that if you think about any organization, they do what they do through people.
Yeah.
You got to have the right people, and they've got to have the right mindset.
Yeah.
They've got to be engaged. They've got to be motivated.
And they got to have the knowledge, because HR is no joke. I mean, this is like, you get the company, you got to protect the company.
Yes.
And so you got to have
a lot of people think HR, it's just touchy-feely, and
No.
if you're a nice person. There's some real technical skills. There's many, many areas of HR that are very technical. And Kendra has made it a point to, she's clearly an expert in several areas, but she's made it a point to really learn the other areas. You have to know HR. You can't just be a nice person that people like, and be an effective HR person. You got to know what you're doing. It's a real profession. It wasn't my first profession, by the way. I'm an employment lawyer. I'm a lawyer.
I knew you were a lawyer, but
I transitioned to HR because I believed that it was more impactful to any organization. I felt like that I could do that, but I wanted to make sure that I knew and learn every aspect of
Right.
HR.
Right.
I don't need to be better than everybody in every area, but I made it a point to know every area of HR, so that when my team and my people want to talk to me about what they're dealing with, I understand what they're talking about,
and you can speak
and I
from those
know
positions.
how to help them.
Yeah.
Kendra is doing that
Yes.
today.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
I've talked to her recently, and she's doing some things today that she didn't do when we worked together.
Yeah.
And she is going to be an extremely talented HR executive, and I'm so excited and so grateful that I had a chance to meet her, work with her, and have a chance to mentor her.
And you still are mentoring her.
Yes, I am.
So I'm going to just, for our audience, just give us a brief summary, because I know that you've led multiple organizations and you have been the head of HR. And so Fortune 50, 500.
Yeah, the largest company that I ever ran HR, and it was also the company that I was the head of employment law with Southwest Airlines.
Okay, yeah.
That candidly was where I really came into my own as a leader. I mean, every airline flies you from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So,
but you're not having an experience. It could be a bad experience.
So that's not the distinction.
Exactly.
The distinction is how you are treated as a customer.
Yeah.
And the distinction is also, if you're an employee, how you're treated as an employee. Yes. I fundamentally learned and understood that Southwest Airlines, and it has really propelled me, really, frankly, for the rest of my career.
Well, thank you, Beverly, so much, because you have concurred with me that Kendra is a phenomenal woman and a woman to watch. So
she absolutely is. We should all be paying attention. I'm so
glad
that I met her.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So, June, welcome to Owning Your Phenomenal Self, Phenomenal Women to Watch. And so, we're here today to talk about Kendra Deas.
Yes.
And you're June Patterson, a good friend. You guys also met. We met about 11 years ago. And so you told me you guys met in cable as well.
Yep.
And you've been friends for about 10 years.
Yes, almost 10 years.
And when I was talking to Kendra, mentorship has been a big part of who she is and what she does. But she attributes mentor relationships with her success in her learning and knowledge and how she's making decisions. And she mentioned you as the person that she kind of does peer-to-peer mentorship with. And so I kind of want you to talk a little bit about Kendra and how that works, and then what is unique in your opinion about Kendra.
Absolutely. I love Kendra. I'll start with that. She's fabulous. And you think about the friends that you have and the people you look at and say, I want to be like her.
Yes.
And Kendra's one of those people, and she's always been that way. When we first met almost 10 years ago in cable, I just really knew that she was the kind of person I wanted to be around.
Right.
She's just a natural born leader. And so when we each talk about sort of charting our careers and figuring out, all right, what board do we need to be on?
Right.
What people do we need to be connecting with? And how can we make an impact in the community?
Right.
I look to Kendra often, and we share ideas about, all right, this is a good idea. Maybe we should do this. And really trying to be strategic about sort of the things that we want to do, and knowing the things that we can do to make an impact in the community.
Right.
And so she's just a great friend to be able to do that with. And so I feel really blessed to have her in my life.
And so, and I know you said that she was a natural born leader, in of course, nobody, you get natural because of the work. But when you think about, out of all of the other relationships and other mentors that you have and other people that you talk to, beside that, is there anything that kind of stands out? Because I've been talking about this thing that she's got, and is there anything that is so unique to Kendra that, beside the leadership, that you see?
The thing about Kendra is she's the kind of person I think about when people set goals. I never ever have to think I'm not sure if Kendra's going to do that. I know for sure that Kendra, once she sets her mind to something, she's going to do it.
Yes.
She's very consistent. She's very loyal.
Yes.
And she's honest.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times I think people, honesty, I would probably say is the one thing that she's just really good at.
Yeah.
And not in a very, she's always polite and professional about
Right.
anything that she has to share.
Yeah.
But when you have to go to her for something, she's not just going to say anything. She's
Right.
going to really tell you the truth
Right.
about whatever it is that you ask her
Right.
about. And so
Right.
I appreciate about that.
Right.
Her genuine and authenticity are the two
Yeah.
other things that really
Yeah.
come to my mind.
Which is critical in the mentorship
Yeah.
relationship, that you know that the person's going to give you their best advice, not
Yes.
what you want to hear.
Yes,
And
exactly.
not afraid of hurting feelings if it's really what is going to work and help you. So.
Yeah. She's a gem, and I really
Okay.
appreciate having her as a friend.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Sherry, welcome to Phenomenal Women to Watch. I'm so glad you could join us and talk about one of my favorite people, Kendra Deas. And I know that you guys, in her past life, you guys worked together. She mentioned you as a really strong influencer as well as a friend from a mentor perspective. And so kind of want you to talk about your relationship and the uniqueness of Kendra as it relates to the Phenomenal Women to Watch.
Sure, and thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for allowing me to talk about one of my favorite people. When I met Kendra, we were working along doing projects together, and her authenticity and her kind of core of who she is, it shines through. And I think that's what really attracted me to continuing to work
Right.
with Kendra on designing projects together.
And you're not in HR, or you are in HR, or you're not. what were
No,
you
I've
in?
always been on the operations side of the business.
Okay.
And so we really were across the table a lot of times, and having to co-source and work together to find solutions
Right.
for the business.
Right. And I know you mentioned that the relationship kind of was mentoring in the beginning. Why don't you talk about how it evolved in that 5 years to what it is today?
Okay. So in the beginning, Kendra was in a manager role,
Right.
and I really pushed her
Right,
a little bit
right.
because I really believed in that value she added
Right.
in the rooms that she was in. And in addition, one of the things that is wonderful about Kendra is her exploring and desire, curiosity to want to do more, be more, and help the people around her, and listening. So whatever feedback she heard, she reacted
Yeah.
to it, and sometimes maybe didn't agree with it, but had to own that that's what she needed to do. And she's a great learner and listener.
Yeah.
And so it started as a mentor relationship, but ended in a relationship that we were equals.
Yeah.
And I got as much, she stretched me and made me think about things differently. Then, so in the end, we were helping each other.
Yes, and that's what she says. And I'll end it with that. She says that in her trajectory, not just on the HR side, but because of you and your relationship, that she learned operations of the business.
Yes.
And the operations of the business fed back into the expertise on the HR, because the more that she understood operations,
Yeah.
the better she was at what she was doing from the HR side. And so now, when you say you sit across the table, when you sat across the table, it's, working on things together, that makes more sense to me. So, yes, well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing this information and this love we all have for Kendra.
Yes.
So I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. When we had the lunch and you were like in between, you had left your other place and you were looking for a new job, and then you had the baby and you know if you're going back to work, and then we were going to talk about that. And then what we talked about was being a good mother for the whole lunch.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about it. And then the next